Awesome. So I'll just give you a quick intro of Vaidehi, and then the stage will be with her. Social media is a fascinating place to be on, but for creators, we need to develop a strategy behind posting content. There are particular things that successful social media channels do, sometimes unintentionally, as with small creators. More prominent brand employs experts like Vaidehi and to create winning social media strategies. Today, we are fortunate to have her expertise in this special masterclass on devoting the best social media strategy. So I'll just go backstage now, Vaidehi. Uh,
Cool. Thank you. So I just share my screen, I think. I hope this is visible. Um, Yash, if you can just WhatsApp me if it's visible. Cool. So, hello, folks. Thank you for sacrificing your Saturday afternoon sleep to come and attend this session. I'm Vaidehi Murthy. I pretend to be a copywriter at Dunzo. And today, apparently, I will be talking about the 10 things to know about social media strategy. I will tell you why this title is invalid later on as we go along the session. So, yeah, let's get started. Um, so the first thing you need to keep in mind when you're trying to establish your brand, whether it's your consumer brand or your personal brand, whichever brand, is that you need to think about what kind of personality you want to put across to your audience. I don't know if you're familiar with the archetype wheel on the right. Archetype is basically personality, so personality trait. So there are different kinds of archetypes different brands go by. For example, in an Indian context, if you think about like a fast track would probably be an outlaw archetype, because they're always edgy and their communication is always kind of taking risks and things like that. A ruler would be somebody like a Hugo Boss, and a magician would be somebody like a Disney. So you need to figure out what is the personality archetype that you want your brand to stand for. For Dunzo, after much deliberation, we arrived at the everyman archetype. We want Dunzo to be perceived as a regular guy, regular person, who is part of their everyday life, someone they can confide in, someone who is there all the time, no matter what, to solve their problems. So that's how we landed on the everyman archetype at Dunzo. So if you kind of pinpoint what archetype you want your brand to stand for, that helps you envision the kind of content that you want to put out. So it'll help you frame the place from which you're talking. So I'm speaking specifically from a Dunzo point of view, because that's what I'm most comfortable with. So when we talk of an every person archetype, you think of Tom Hanks and you think of a person next door. You think of Ayushmann Khurrana, you think boy next door. You think Tapsi Pannu, you think girl next door. So someone who's part of your day-to-day life. So if you kind of pick characters, fictional characters, real life characters, who embody and who personify the archetype that you have picked, it will help you clarify what your brand would be perceived as in your head. It will help make it clear that, okay, I want my brand to be perceived as an everyman archetype, and I want it to be like a friendly neighborhood. That's why Spider-Man's picture is there, like a friendly neighborhood brand. So it'll help you come up with these adages and frame these ideas in your head if you actually draw parallels with characters in pop culture or fiction or real life. The second thing is, I think this is one of the most important things when it comes to catering to your social media audience is that you need to really understand who you're putting out the content for. I like if you're in anywhere close to the marketing field, you know that this is of utmost importance to target your audience correctly with the correct content. When I say know your audience, because only when you know your audience can they connect with your content, right? So when I say know your audience, I don't mean think of them like a group of people. Don't think of them, oh, Gen Z, millennial. Pinpoint who they are, develop personas for them. I'll just explain it how we do it in Dunzo. We basically have two kinds of personas. One is depicted by the couple on the left, and one is depicted by the couple on the right. So we call them power users and next million users. Power users are those basically for I'm sure all of you are familiar with this lingo. It's India and Bharat, right? So they are your Jimmy Fallon audience versus Kapil Sharma audience. So when we think about these users and these sets of users, we actually build a persona. Like we give them names. Like we have a Deepika and Dhruv, we have a Manjula and Manjunath. We even drill down to the details, like what apps do they use, how do they unlock their phone. You can see Dhruv and Deepika use Face ID, and Manjula and Manjunath use like a pattern lock. How they value your brand. Like, for example, Dhruv and Deepika value Dunzo because it saves them time. And Manjula and Manjunath value Dunzo because it saves them money. They would be more interested in things like offers and discounts and things like that. There's another element to this. When you are catering to your audience, the medium you cater to them also matters. If you look at the center of the slide, the visual at the center of the slide, you'll see that there is a slight displacement between the different social media platforms in terms of consumption. If you see, like, if you're putting out more clever intellectual content, it will probably do well in Twitter. If we are putting out more slapstick massy content, it will probably do better on WhatsApp. So this can be expanded to fit any social media platform. For example, if you take a Reddit, it would probably lie majorly on the left side. If you take like a Chingari, Ropozo, Takatak, it would probably lie more on the right side. So it's important to create that persona who you're catering to. We do both kinds of content. We try to strike a balance. It's not that we do only one kind of content to cater to one audience, or sometimes, and most of the time there is an overlap, right? So like Dhruv and Deepika will also consume WhatsApp and TikTok and Chingari and all those things. But there is a general trend of which kind of user consumes what. So you need to find a balance between the audience, the kind of audience, the medium, and the content. So if you can match these three, that is your sweet spot. Moving on, number three is it's very important. I think it's one of Dunzo's strong suits that we try and propagate a human voice in all the content that we put out. We have four major voice pillars that we stick by no matter what, which are on the right side. We try to be relatable, enduring, real, and tongue-in-cheek. Sorry. The most prominent among these four is, of course, our tongue-in-cheek kind of content, word plays and puns and humor. It's something we bank heavily on. It works for us very well. But we also try to be insightful and relatable and something, and put out content that's something that all of us see in our everyday lives, but we have not seen it from that lens. So relatable is something that we always strive to be. And I think it's a word that gets thrown around a lot, and it's a cliche for a reason, because that's the main um, purpose of communication, is to connect with your audience. And if you're not serving that purpose, then there is no meaning to communication. So relatability is a major thing that you need to focus on. And being endearing is something that we arrived at, in the sense that if you see Dunzo, a lot of Dunzo's communication is like, we have a tone of being an underdog, right? It's because we started that way. We didn't start with an arrogant tone of voice, right? Because we started as a small team somewhere in the corner of Bangalore, putting out social media content, right? So we started off with that. We had imbibed that personality trait within us in the team. So our content reflected that, and it worked phenomenally for us. So being enduring and cute and humble, it worked really well for us. And of course, being real is the need of the hour. We hardly find people who are real nowadays. I will talk more about this in one of the subsequent slides. So we thought about what is the best way to make our brand human. The best way to make our brand human is humans. So we created a mascot universe. Hari UP, who's on the right here, was our first brand mascot. You will find that all their names are puns. So we had different stakeholders to our platform. So we created a mascot who was the voice of each one of those stakeholders. For example, there are merchants, there are delivery partners, there are users or consumers, there is customer support person. I will just spend 2 minutes talking about the universe characters, because communication is all about storytelling, and this is an important part of Dunzo's story. So we also think that our communication needs to embody the values that we stand for. One of the major things that we stand for is variety makes us. It's a running theme in most of our communication. For years it has been. And by variety makes us, I mean inclusion and diversity. So if you look at our mascots, there is a Hindu, a Muslim, a Christian, a Parsi, a Sikh, a Buddhist, and an atheist. Jasmeet is non-binary. Caroline is a lesbian. Shelfali is a woman who's running a store all by herself. We are trying to break the stereotype of the Indian auntie. Lana Dorji is from Nagaland, and we have backstories for all of these characters, right? And Stuart Sodawala is a chef who has a skin condition called vitiligo. And we are trying to break stereotypes with every little detail. Our team is a great believer in the little details. So if you go to any of our work, I'm sure there will be some Easter egg or the other that we would have put in there. Things like Hari is a little bit taller than Danya, and Hari is the most sensitive one. Danya is more badass. Things like that. So we have built these backstories and personas. So we ourselves in the team perceive Dunzo as a person and not as a brand. So that's all I'm trying to get at, is that think of your brand as a person, and that'll ease things out for you in a major way. So when I say the tone of voice, I spoke about those 4 voice pillars: relatable, endearing, real, and tongue-in-cheek. We make sure that those voice pillars are adhered to in every form of communication that goes out of the organization, whether it's a response to a tweet. Sorry, you would have seen, if you would have seen on our Twitter feed, we respond to every comment with a pun on the person's name who's commented. So that is tongue in cheek, it's human, it's endearing, it's relatable. So even in our social media posts, there's a comic series called Danya Ki Dunya, which is a running series. Even on Instagram, we do the pun responses. Here we ran a series called Mushkil Hai Rasta. If you look on the left side, where there are two delivery partners, this was to highlight the struggles and the pain points of the delivery partners, to try and generate empathy for the, I mean, they're doing amazing work on the streets, but nobody is recognizing it, right? So we wanted to highlight that. And so here, if you look at the creative on the left, there's no copy on that. It's just as mushkil hai rasta. So I will speak more about how to balance copy and visuals and all in the subsequent slides. But basically, what I want to establish with this slide is that in every aspect, whether you're responding to comments or the creative that you're putting out, try and stick to those voice pillars that you have identified for your brand. Next is a very exciting topic for us, because we feel like it's one of our strengths, is moment marketing. So whenever there is a topical or moment marketing, it's the easiest way to put yourself on the map. Okay. And because everyone's talking about it, and you can ride that wave very easily with much lesser effort than what you would have otherwise put in to catch that same amount of attention. So there are three important things when it comes to moment marketing. That is timing, timing, and timing. So even if you don't have the greatest idea ever, you need to make sure that your creative goes out, or your take on that particular topic goes out as quickly as you can. So it may not be even a trend yet. You need to sense an upcoming trend even before it happens. So we always have our ears to the ground. We have WhatsApp groups, Instagram groups, Facebook groups. Everywhere we keep a lookout for what might trend. Everyone in the team does that. And then we look at something that might trend and we put it on the group and say, do you want to do a creative on this? So timing, I would say, is predominant when it comes to moment marketing. If you have a great idea along with it, nothing like it will go miles. But I would say that even if it's not your best idea, just make sure it goes out on time, and it will definitely fetch you some kind of engagement. These are a couple of moment marketing creatives which we had done a long time ago. The left one was done during lockdown one, when Dalgona was all the rage. Seems like another lifetime now. And the right side one was done when President Trump had visited India and had fumbled when he said Vivekananda. He said Vivekamunda. So the point I wanted to illustrate with this slide is that if you look at the one on the left, it does have a strong visual, but it's the copy that's doing the heavy lifting in terms of making it unique, right? And the right one is a equal balance between visual and copy. Both are carrying the weight of what makes this creative unique. So there is no right way and wrong way. Both of these have worked very well. So you need to take a call. What do you want to do with it? Sometimes you may not think of an amazing visual idea or something. You may just have a few lines of copy. Put the lines of copy, put a generic visual like we did, send it out. On the right, we had this idea that let's put it on Starbucks, because we wanted to do a wordplay with coffee fee, and how the fact that people always misspell your name in Starbucks. So we kind of balanced that out in the second one. So basically, yeah, you just need to take a call and go for it. Next one is I'm sure if there are creative people in the audience, they'll be all too familiar with the absolute anguish of sending out something that doesn't appeal to you personally. So it happens to all of us, and you need to kind of, again, strike a balance between what people need and what you want to send out. Strike a balance between what you want to say and what they want to hear, basically. So in at Dunzo, what we do is we follow like a 70-30 rule. 70% is what the janta would appreciate, and 30% is what we in the team are really passionate about. So we follow something called hero hub and hygiene model. So we have our hero projects which we are really passionate about, and these are the projects that satisfy our creative appetite, and these are the things that we are proud to put out, right? And then we have the hub projects like the comic series Danya Ki Dunya. These are running themes. We do a couple of them or 3-4 of them per month. Partner with Sign, Danya Ki Dunya comic series, all those are hub. And then there is the hygiene, which is completely business as usual, brand collaborations and offers and discounts, and which don't necessarily are the most creative ones that we put out. So we do like a hero project once every 2 months or once every quarter. We do hub, which is a running theme, and hygiene is pretty much happens day to day as BAU. So when we talk about creative people, uh, there are certain projects that which you feel really passionate about, right? We think of this phrase effort versus reward. So if you look on the left, this is a creative that we did for, I think, 72nd uh, Republic Day, and our theme variety makes us, we wanted to embody what it means to us. So what we did was we took 72 visual cues that represent Indians, and we made a terrifically elaborate illustration with all those elements. For example, there is a pani puri wala, there are people drying clothes in the terrace, there is someone doing yoga, there are potholes in the road, there is a laughter club. So there are 72 such elements which are in this illustration, which embody Indians, right? So this one took weeks to make. The one on the right took slightly over 5 minutes to make. But the one on the right got us so much more engagement than the one on the left. But the one on the left was our hero project, and this one we had done to satisfy our creative appetite. So what I'm saying is you'll have to do a bit of both. Whatever works is the mantra that we often go by. Next one is that if you never try, you never know. Experimentation is key, right? So social media is a very kind of volatile space, and you need to keep thinking of new ways to approach things that have been done already. And you don't want to be the last one to grab mind space in an audience's mind where they've been saturated and bombarded with information. So you need to keep trying. So what we do is we hang on to this word called new. So we either do something new or we do something that's been done in a new way, right? So basically we don't, if something has worked and if something has gotten us praise and engagement and numbers and everything, it's not necessary that it's going to work again. If a post has worked today doesn't mean the same post will work tomorrow. So we need to have a pipeline of original ideas for you to be consistent in terms of being new and fresh and original. So if you look at Dunzo's content on social media, we have a great variety of content. Like we have data campaigns which we do from time to time from our user statistics. We have this one, the left one was like a cheeky welcome we did to Swiggy Instamart. Um, this was actually one of the creatives which actually put us on the map. Then on the right side, we did features of partners, kind of highlighting their backgrounds and their stories, and again trying to tell people that this is an organization run by people and not just driven by numbers, and then of course there's wordplay heavy ones like this pil jata hai, and then we did a throwback to uh, ads, iconic ads from the 90s with a Dunzo twist to it. So if you see the content on Dunzo's social media, you will see that it's the design language may not be so consistent among all the creatives, but all these are adhering to those four voice pillars that we spoke about. So even if the language is not consistent, your personality needs to be consistent. This is another voice pillar, the real part of it, which I wanted to elaborate a little on. Audiences today are very sensitive if you're trying to con them, or if you're trying to pull a fast one, if you're trying to be too salesy, or so you need to be genuine with your intentions and what you're telling them. And like when you say participate in this contest and win exciting prizes, audience today knows that exciting prizes means probably a 500 rupee voucher which expires in a day. So you need to be genuine about what you're offering your audiences, and that is what will form a real connection between you and your audiences. We try to be genuine in all our efforts and try to have good intentions with all the projects that we do. And one of the things that we have actively worked on is trying to build a brand with a conscience. Two of our pet projects, I would say, in this area is typically things like Women's Day and Pride Month, where we try and highlight the pain points of marginalized communities through the platform that we have. It again ties back to making us more human. It's the value system that we stand for as an organization, as a team, and we try and reflect that in the work that we do. Similarly, on the left, you can see during COVID, we tried to do whatever we could without being very brandy or salesy, because that you need to realize what is poor taste. Like, for example, yesterday there were a bunch of brands doing topicals, funny takes on Russia and Ukraine, which may not be the best strategy, because you don't want to be funny at somebody's expense. So building a brand with a conscience is always an added plus. And this is one of the more common writer's block kind of situations that we come across. Is we are often stuck on how do we present this topic in a new way, in a fresh with a fresh take. So what we do is, this is something that we all genuinely believe, that there is more than one way to look at things. This is one of my favorite images on the right. There is always a different perspective you can look at when it comes to a topic. So what we do is we zoom out. If it's some kind of a topic related to Indians, we think about, say, how a foreigner would react to it. What would their take be on it? So always zoom out of that situation and see how an alien in that situation would react to it, and you would probably see a new perspective. Promise me you do it for enough, I promise you do it for enough time and you will see a new perspective. These two creatives are examples of how we tilted our head. The left one was when Tesla first came into India. We took the Tesla logo and we visualized it like a namaste, where the viewer had to literally tilt their head and see the creative upside down. On the right side was a more sentimental one where people were apart during COVID, and they couldn't hug each other during Eid. And we wanted to show people hugging, but without them being unsafe or dangerous. So we were wondering, how do we show that? So we thought of this, these shadows hugging would be a nice way to depict that. Next is, this is where I tell you that the title of the presentation is completely invalid, because social media is so volatile. It evolves so much every day that I may tell you 10 things you should know about social media today, and tomorrow that may be all irrelevant. So you need to constantly, I think the key is to have your finger on the pulse of your audience. Always read the room, what's going on, what are people talking about, what language are they using, what are their pop culture references today, what do they, where do they laugh more, where do they laugh less. So all those are the kind of things that you need to constantly keep in your consciousness to be able to cater to the audience in a better way. This is just an example I've put. These are not real numbers, but you need to constantly course correct when it comes to social media. So obviously we track metrics like engagement, impressions, reach, but we have started tracking number of shares more intensely in recent times, because that is, we feel like a true indicator of whether your content is worthy. We do weekly reviews, and we treat our creatives as a sum of moving parts. We treat copy separate. What happens if the copy is clever? What happens if the copy is simple? What happens if the visual is elaborate? What happens if the visual is subtle? So we treat our creative as a sum of moving parts. We change each part and see how that affects our numbers, our metrics, and take them as learnings. The last one is, basically, don't, like I said, social media is a space that is constantly evolving. So don't limit yourself in terms of what content you can put out. Don't think you should do things a certain way because it's been done by brands before, or because it has worked for you before. Um, I'll give you an example of what we did. Um, Having other brands on your brand communication was, I mean, let alone your competitor brands on your brand communication, was kind of not done before. I mean, it had been done in terms of like ambush marketing, McDonald's and Burger King going at each other's throats, but in a heartening way, in a positive way. It had not been done before. So we didn't limit ourselves to saying, okay, we can't put other brands on our creatives. We went ahead and did it. On the left is a Friendship Day creative, which we did with like a whole bunch of brands and their mascots, which I think it's one of our most viral pieces yet. And on the right is, we did a series called Everyday Superheroes. This was during COVID, where we paid tribute and we saluted all the brands who had delivery partners and frontline workers, which also did really, really well for us. So basically, there are no rules. Don't think beyond what has been done before and what has worked for others. There's, like I said, there's always a new perspective, a new angle to do things. That's about it for now. So follow us on your socials, follow us on our socials, and yeah, I think I'll hand it back to Yash. Yash, are you there?
Hi, Vaidehi. Such a great masterclass, I would say. Someone rightly pointed in the comments as well. Love the inclusivity and the wordplay you folks do. There is so much depth in your posts and the mascots. That's the same thought that I had. It's not just about, being different and being creative. Everything has a reason behind it. And that's why I guess everyone loves Dunzo so much.
Thank you so much.
So should we take a couple of questions? There are some few good questions over here.
Sure.
Uh, there's a question: how much can you create impact through words, even without face value?
See, there are some brands who have created their whole impact, only with words. Zomato would be a great example of that. Their creatives usually have only copy. So we try and do a balance of both, because we feel that design is also very strong in our team, and we focus a lot on design as well, and we have an incredible team of designers, so design works for us. But if you have there is nothing stopping you from just putting a line of copy on your post and posting it. There is no difference. If it's strong enough, it will end up having the impact that you want it to.
Right. Rahul here is asking, do we need to have a fixed archetype in start, or we can change it after some period when clarity comes in?
I would say try and not change it as much as possible, because the reason you're having an archetype is because you need an anchor to go to every time you're like, what should my tone of voice be? You go back to that archetype and you're like, okay, is it being an everyman? Is it being an outlaw? Is it being a magician? So you can hold that as a benchmark. But if you're unsure, have an archetype. So it's always, so that's the basis of trial and error, right? First have something you start with. If that doesn't work, switch it to something that you can stick with.
Got it. Pranita has asked a great question here. Do you think that Dunzo's content was the biggest edge contributing to the popularity, or was it the unique service or media budget?
I think our audience should answer that, but I do believe that Dunzo's content has managed to make a dent, in a good way. I'd like to believe that as part of the content
Definitely.
team. But yeah.
Sagar is asking her how to hire a good copywriter.
That is a question which is haunting most managers in the industry. But there's no single answer to it. I think how we were hired in our team, most of the hires in our team, including me and others as well, is we constantly keep a lookout on social media for somebody who has proven themselves with their content, who have built an audience of their own. Those are the best kind of people to hire, because they know the mechanics of the medium, right? They know how content works, they know how to control the emotions of an audience. So they already know that. So it's like a hack, like they already know all those things. You hire them, they're instantly doing good work for you.
Right.
Others, if you hire copywriters who don't have that much of standing on social media, you probably need to nurture them more and help them get that proof.
That makes sense. Diksha has asked two questions here. I'll combine it. Is it necessary to put out content every day on social media? And what is the number of posts that one should do in a day?
There is no magic formula, but as many as you can is the magic formula. Because when you're, there will be hits and misses. Some of your posts will do really well, some of them will really tank. So the best way to, so ultimately what your objective is while building a brand, even if it's your personal brand, is to uh, put yourself in the limelight, grab attention to yourself, right? So if you do as many as you can, one of those posts will end up doing that, right? So I think consistency is key. Like you need to be consistent, and once a day is like, I would say, a good number to go with.
Got it. I'll take one last question, Vaidehi. Harshal here is asking, how important or beneficial do you think a mascot can be for a brand?
Speaking from experience, I think it changed the game for us, having mascots, because it not only positioned us as a brand differently to our users and our audience, it also changed how we perceive the brand. Now we are thinking in terms of how this person would think about this, right? How this, we think about the mascots as members of Dunzo who would
Yeah.
think about. So it gives great clarity in terms of what message you're trying to convey. And like I said, the human aspect. People instantly
Yeah.
connect to a human.
Correct.
So if you have a human talking to you, even if it's a human form with a text speech bubble, people will look at that more than just like text. They don't want to be communicating with like a bot, they want to be communicating with a person or a persona.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vaidehi, for your time. It
Thank you.
was such a pleasure to host you, and I really loved the PPT as well. The design of the PPT, it was so simple and minimal, yet so much information was packed in it. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me, and whoever slipped up and invited me among all the other illustrious names in this summit. But I really enjoyed being here. Thank you so much, Yash.
Thank you.